And this is why photographers might tell you to take a breath in and then exhale. But if you overdo that exhale, that can actually put you into a posture that actually looks a lot less aesthetically pleasing. All right, so in this video, you're gonna learn how to get your best looking posture in less than 10 seconds. If you're new to the channel, my name is Greg Chaplin. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and strength and conditioning specialist. And on this channel, we talk a lot about posture, breathing, and biomechanics, and how we integrate those into training for both rehab and for fitness. Now in this video, we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're gonna focus on integrating posture and breathing into looking your best and maximize your aesthetic appeal. That sounds kind of funny to say. And the reason that I'm actually making this video is I was at a photo shoot recently, my first one actually, and we were going through some postural cues, and I was applying some of the same reasoning that I use in the rest of my videos to work on rehab and training, and I was realizing that you could definitely go wrong with trying to correct your posture for aesthetics, and there is a better and worse way to do it. So in this video, we're gonna go through 2 simple exercises that you can use, and we're gonna really simplify this down, help you to understand how we're making these adjustments, and we're gonna focus on 2 areas. The first is gonna be here in the abdomen and chest, and the second is gonna be in the neck and the head. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so to talk about what good posture is first and foremost, before we get into the techniques, I got my buddy Mr. Phibbs here. And you might notice that we're in this kind of shot where you really can't see the legs. And that's because if we get the pelvis, rib cage, and head to all align over each other in what I call the stacked position, then usually everything else takes care of itself. So the stacked position really just means that if we drew a line from the back of the ear, down through the shoulder, middle of the rib cage, middle of the abdomen, and down all the way to the middle of the pelvis through the hip joint, then we'd be relatively well aligned in a way where we can effortlessly create balance within the body. But there's a second component here as well, in addition to this stack, that makes a posture look more aesthetically pleasing, especially for photos, and that is the relationship of the rib cage and the pelvis as it relates to the abdomen and then the expansion of the rib cage. So a less aesthetically pleasing type look will be where the abdomen goes out and down into this kind of pooch belly kind of situation. And you'll notice that as I do that, maybe I have to lose the Canadian tuxedo for this, is that we have this inverse relationship between what happens in the abdomen and what happens in the rib cage. So if I let the pooch happen here, down and out, you're gonna see the dimension of my rib cage front to back gets a little bit more narrow. And so hopefully you can see how this is much less aesthetically pleasing than if I actually had that abdomen somewhat in, which automatically increases that dimension of the rib cage front to back. And with some breathing that we're gonna talk about in a second, will actually allow us to expand that rib cage, not only front to back, but also side to side. So if we can get the positioning right and the breathing right, we can achieve almost a perfectly aesthetically pleasing, if that's even a way to say it, type posture. And then from there, the cherry on top is gonna be looking at what happens here with the neck and the head. All right, so exercise number 1 here is gonna be all about learning how to move the guts. And the direction in which we're gonna move the guts is up and back. So an unideal posture, if that's even a word, is gonna be down and forward like this in this pooch belly kind of configuration. At that same time, we're gonna see that it decreases the dimension of the rib cage front to back. Now, because we're in this position and we need to maintain balance, often that head and neck will come forward as well. We might see a swaying forward of the hips and a swaying back of the rib cage, and that's probably the least aesthetically appealing posture that you could possibly have. That's your resting posture, totally fine, but we're gonna teach you how to adjust that now. So what we wanna think about here is, first of all, we wanna try to get that pelvis and that rib cage to just stack over each other. So you can play with this a little bit, moving the rib cage forward, moving it back, moving the pelvis back, moving it forward, but find that place where you can visualize that the pelvis as a bowl is stacked directly below the cylinder, which is the rib cage. Then once you have that position, that should already have begun to adjust the abdomen just reflexively. Then from there, what you're gonna think about is drawing your lower abs up and in, almost like you're collecting that fluid mass and pulling it up and backwards toward the lower part of your rib cage. And so hopefully you can see this. Pay attention to what happens as I go from this pooch. You can see this rib cage is really, really narrow. And then as I pull up and back, you'll see that naturally the dimension here starts to expand a little bit. So that's down and forward. That's pulling up and back. And when I pull up and back, the thing you want to watch out for is that we're not squeezing or crunching, right? We don't want to turn this into this because you can see that the head comes forward, but instead we want to pull up and back with the guts, which is going to give us that appearance of a little bit flatter of a lower abdomen, but it's actually going to begin to expand the upper abdomen. So we got to relax up here. We don't want to be crunching or tense down up top. Then once we're in this position, we have our guts collected up and back. Now we still have to deal with the dimension of the rib cage here, which we want to be as big as possible to give us that sort of V shape. So once we collect the guts up here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to get our breath in while maintaining that feeling of pulling up and in. So as we do a nice gentle breath through the nose and we maintain that feeling of pulling up and back, now we're gonna get some expansion of the rib cage, not only front to back, but also side to side. Okay, now you can go a little bit too extreme with this and get into a position where you kind of look tense and it looks forced. That's certainly not what you wanna do. You want to find the most subtle way that you can go from this kind of a position, pull up just to where you feel like you're not putting a whole lot of effort in, and then do a very easy breath that gives you a little bit of that expansion in the rib cage. The thing that looks the worst is when you go from this kind of slump position and then you overdo it and you got a whole bunch of tension and you're there like, oh, take a picture of me, right? And this is why photographers, I think, based on my experience with one photo shoot, might tell you to take a breath in and then exhale to relax, right? And that's good advice in one case, but if you overdo that exhale by kind of crunching down and collapsing, right, that can actually put you into a posture that actually looks a lot less aesthetically pleasing. So to review here, step one is get relatively aligned with ribcage and pelvis, just experimenting front to back. This should also be the position that allows your head to kind of rest over ribcage and pelvis as well. Then you're gonna pull your guts up and in by drawing your abdomen up and back. Then from here, you do a gentle breath to get that expansion in the rib cage. And you should be doing this in a level that's so light that if someone was looking at your face, it would just be like, oh yeah, they're not doing anything. They're just hanging out. They're just resting. Yeah. They shouldn't be able to hear your breath. It should be really easy and effortless. Nobody should even know anything is going on at all. So I think last thing that should be said here is this is not something you need to do all the time. I wouldn't suggest doing any movement or skill all the time, especially if it's something that's supposed to happen reflexively. But what you want to do instead is you want to start to link this kind of position that you're achieving through these exercises to a feeling. So when I do these exercises and I'm pulling up and back and then I'm breathing a little bit and then I get tongue on the roof of the mouth, I feel very relaxed and coolly, calmly, confident and structured and supported. I feel, yes, I'm at attention, but I'm also at ease. I'm not overdoing this posture and then creating a whole bunch of tension in my body and looking forced and stressed out, but instead I'm looking confident. And so that feeling of confidence can then be associated in the brain with this kind of a position. So that when someone is taking a picture of you or you're talking to someone, you can have the feeling of, oh, I'm just gonna get into a confident kind of a position. And then all those things will be linked. And then the more and more that this becomes automatic, then you can be in these type situations and just say, okay, I'm just gonna exude confidence. And then boom, you can get into that posture really easily without actually having to think about any of the cues that we just said. So practice this in isolation, get the feeling, and then take that feeling and learn to associate that feeling with what you want in specific situations. All right, so there you have it. You want to look at the position of the head, rib cage, and pelvis, then work on getting the abdomen into a better position, superimpose the breathing and tongue posture on there, and you'll be looking your best in no time. If you enjoyed this video, consider watching the other videos on this channel, share this video, like, comment, and if you want to go a little bit deeper with this, I have 2 opportunities for you down below in the description. You can either pick up my 7-day breathwork challenge. It's going to help you improve posture and breathing through a series of 7 simple days of exercise, or if you want to dive really deep and understand how I integrate posture into training and rehab, then go ahead and join the waitlist for total body restoration. I'm going to be reopening this. This is a comprehensive 12-week group coaching program that comes with a course and tons of resources, so you're definitely not going to want to miss this. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, peace.